Hello everybody, my name is Professor Squid. Now let's start this review by talking about peer pressure. Basically, it's when a group of peers convinces someone to do something they wouldn't ordinarily do. It's a very powerful and dangerous thing. Now, they can pressure you to do drugs, they can pressure you to do dangerous stunts, or they can pressure you into making terrible financial decisions and buying terrible video games like Battlefield 2042. Like me! My brothers and uncle told me to buy it because apparently it's super fun to them, and honestly, I cannot see the appeal. So, I did not buy this game at full price, at the very least. I was so hyped for it before it came out. I pre-ordered it, tried to tell my friends to as well. I got my hands on the beta, and it sucked, so I canceled my pre-order, and I waited, and not much changed from the beta. Every part of this game has been clowned on, from its cringe-inducing specialists to the vehicle call-in system and lack of weapon variety. In truth, I can't say much that hasn't already been said by everyone else. Like, I'm just kicking a dead horse at this point. But screw it, I spent my money, I hate this game, so I'll do a review. Let's start with the story, which I know a lot of hardcore Battlefield fans will probably just skip. It's the year 2042. Climate change is ramping up. World has been plunged into absolute chaos, natural disasters are widespread, and some governments, like the German one, have collapsed. Millions are being forced from their homes, and there are only two superpowers left on Earth, the US and Russia, somehow. Now, there are a bunch of non-patriots, or no-pats, fighting for one of the sides over land and resources. At least, I think that's the gist of the no-pats. Now, this sounds like it would be an awesome narrative to explore in a single-player campaign. Right? Well, too bad, kid. DICE doesn't think so. They didn't make a single-player campaign so that they could focus their efforts on multiplayer. Apparently. And it doesn't even show. I'll get into the multiplayer a bit later. So, since you have no campaign, you don't have much context for the battles besides what the announcer says at the beginning of the match from time to time. A campaign could have also had the chance to explore the specialists a bit more and help us build a stronger connection to them. I know most of the hardcore Battlefield fans are going to say that, well, all of the campaigns have sucked, and it's sad that the lack of one is one of your first complaints. First, Battlefield 1's war stories were not bad, and Battlefield 5's, a few of them, had their moments. Second, just because DICE has never made any exceptional campaigns in the past doesn't mean we should just give them a pass for not even trying. There's nothing here to accommodate people with a lackluster or non-existent internet connection, and that's a real letdown. In conclusion, the lore is good, but there's no real story to latch onto. Alright, time to spread my cheeks and take a fat dump all over the multiplayer, or all-out warfare. There is not much, if anything, redeeming about it. It lacks content. In fact, it took them 8 months to add one new map. Meanwhile, Battlefield 4 had 3 DLC packs within that time period. It also had a lot more weapons to choose from, and that game, just like this one, was a broken disaster at launch. But you know what? That's the curse of modern gaming. Game launch is broken and devoid of content, but don't worry, they'll add one new map and a few bug fixes every 6 months. This is pathetic. I bet if these maps were paid DLC, we would have 12 of them by now. This game even lacked a scoreboard and voice chat for a long time, and a team-based cooperative shooter, no less. Alright, let's talk about the maps for a second. The base maps don't really look or play that good at all, to be honest. When I say they don't look good, I'm not talking about graphical fidelity, because the game looks fine, albeit a downgrade from the previous titles, I'd say. The locations just aren't very interesting or visually pleasing. They lack atmosphere and don't sell the feeling of a world going downhill. Except, I guess, when the storm happens, but even then, no one cares about the storm because it's so irrelevant, despite the marketing. So, while the maps don't sell the feeling of a world going downhill, just like the specialists, which, yeah, that's a bad transition, but I want to rant about them so goddamn badly right now. They are my least favorite part of this entire game, possibly. They really take away from the feeling of being just another soldier in a bigger conflict, which is what I like about Battlefield. Now you see the same 11 characters for everyone in the entire match. For a while, you could barely tell between your team and the enemy team. Don't even get me started on their god-awful voice lines that, thank God, I think were removed. They're literally fighting over land and resources in a dying world, but the best line they have is, "Don't be sad, that's just how it works out sometimes." DICE wants to be like Apex or Overwatch with a large roster of characters brimming with personality and charm, except these ones somehow have less personality than the soldiers in Battlefield 1. Heck, they have less personality than the randomly generated soldiers in Call of Duty campaigns. These specialists also fundamentally break the core Battlefield experience. Every shooter has its own rhythm, a unique way that it plays. Call of Duty's a fast-paced arcade-style shooter, Halo's a sandbox shooter, Overwatch is a team-based strategic shooter, and Apex Legends is a fast-paced but team-oriented battle royale, and so on. Battlefield is meant to be a middle ground between the more approachable game like Call of Duty and the kind of milsim games I'd say sort of like Arma. I don't know if that's the best comparison, but a team-based cooperative shooter. This specialist system basically destroys the game's rhythm and discourages teamwork. Any specialist can be any class, so you're not going to play a specific role. You don't know what your teammates have selected, so it's every man for himself. Every class can now use every weapon, and the only thing the specialist can do is... The only thing they really do is give a specific gadget that could have been selected in the old and better class system. As weird as it may sound, Battlefield 2042 is just a bunch of people running around shooting one another. There's not really any sense of teamwork or order unless you're playing with friends. And my friends aren't as stupid as I am with their money, so they didn't buy this piece of garbage. So, the ability to switch attachments on the fly is kind of neat, but isn't the point of customization making your gun ready for most types of engagements? I don't know, I feel like it's kind of pointless because you can just change them when you die. Whatever. Alright, back to the maps. Terrible segue, I know. They aren't designed very well, and the spawns can be downright atrocious. There's only one truly good one, and the rest are just way too big. This was likely done to accommodate the 128 players, but to be honest, most of the space on those maps could have just been cut out, because the action only really goes on at a select few areas. Also, some game modes are just unbearable on certain maps, like, at least at launch, Breakthrough on Kaleidoscope. The objectives were at the top of the skyscrapers and almost impossible to take. Renewal is great for Breakthrough, but I'm not so sure about Conquest. Renewal's a fine map, so it probably plays fine there too. In older Battlefield games, it wasn't about which maps it was about which maps I actually liked the most, but now it's about which one do I hate the least. Their enormous size could possibly be explained by the fact that DICE was originally making another Battle Royale that was just going to flop like Battlefield 5 Firestorm. So they switched gears and made it the next Battlefield. There's only 8 maps, 7 at launch. Meanwhile, Battlefield 4 had 10, Battlefield 1 had 9, and even Battlefield 5 had 8. Now, let's just get into some other problems I have with the multiplayer. Just clear up what I have to say for this piece of garbage, because it was so goddamn boring. I did not want to play it to get footage for this review. Okay. Now, things I don't like. This is probably just personal preference to me, but the movement and gunplay just feel off to me. They kind of feel like a Chinese knockoff of Warzone's movement and gunplay. They took out leaning, so kids are just sliding around corners like it's Call of Duty with no caution at all. The weapons feel less beefy than they did in previous games. The reload animations are pretty good though. Oh yeah, and about the guns. I should probably mention that you cannot earn new guns or attachments mid-game. You have to wait until the match ends. Why? What was wrong with the old system? Maybe they just don't want people to leave matches often? I don't know. DICE are run by a bunch of special ed goldfish with a 3-second memory span. Destruction is laughably downgraded to the point that Portal features more of it than the base game. The soundtrack is really, really bad. It sounds like whale calls mixed with metallic resonance. The call-in system is very easy to exploit because you can dominate with a hovercraft. The UI is atrocious and unintuitive. Parachute, I don't like how the parachute feels. I don't think they needed to change it like they did. Like it feels like the Warzone parachute. And that's just to name a few of the problems. In conclusion, they canceled the campaign to allocate more resources to multiplayer with the biggest team ever working on a Battlefield title ever, but it doesn't show. It's hilariously lackluster, and there's not much redeeming about it. There's nothing this mode does that previous Battlefield games haven't done better. Alright, let's talk about Portal mode next. Portal mode is probably the best part of Battlefield 2042 because it's literally just the older and better games, but worse because they're tied to this one and some of its problems carry over. The games are Battlefield 3, Bad Company 2, and 1942. This mode features more levolution than the main game, doesn't have specialists, but has less guns and lacks a lot of features from the older titles. Some of the modes, such as 1942 versus 2042, are very unbalanced, but overall, it is good fun to revisit these classics where they're actually populated. Oh wait! The game is basically dead! Along with Halo Infinite, rest in peace, although this game has a little bit more players right now, but I think Halo Infinite has better bones. Alright, moving on to Hazard Zone. Hazard Zone. Why should I care? Not even DICE does, because they stopped supporting it. It's not even worth talking about. It just sucked. In conclusion, Battlefield 2042 is really bad. It was horribly rushed and handled by DICE and EA. Most of its problems are developer made and so deeply integrated they cannot be fixed. I can't give you any reason to play this game over most others on the market. If you want a hero shooter, just go play Apex Legends. It's free to play. If you want the large-scale battles with lots of vehicles and players, just go play the older Battlefield games. After all, most of them have more players than this game does right now. I cannot give this game anything above a 3 out of 10. Hot take, but I'm glad they're ditching this dumpster fire. At least that's what's rumored. Because, like, at its core, it is bad. DICE is reportedly making a new game that's a straight-up hero shooter because they sniff their own farts and think it smells good. Vince Zampella, pretty much FPS Jesus, now has control over the Battlefield franchise, but I don't know if he can truly fix DICE and save this franchise. If he can't, rest in peace Battlefield.